Hi, happy Sunday to you. I'm coming to you live on day 74 of 365. I received an incredibly heartfelt message or messages from someone on the other side of the world. And this person expressed how profound the combination of listening to the Threshold series and yesterday's live around bumping against your limits really landed with her. And here she shared the context of her experience, and I offered to create a follow-up. Hi, Yvonne. I offered to create a follow-up for her in this video today. So as many of you know, I am a really avid hiker and walker, and I really wanted to get into the metaphor of why I walk and why so many people walk, and getting into the depths of how sacred it is for me. And so I often will write in my posts, I walk my talk. And hi, Lissa. And in my post, when I share this, that I walk my talk, and in my circles and with clients, it's really because I want people to know that I'm a real person and that I am incredibly imperfect, and I am someone who used to strive incredibly for perfectionism. And when I found Brené's work, it was 2011, and I was living in Japan with my daughter, who was 9 months old, and my dad had sent it to me. And it was her first TED Talk, and I started to begin to have an awareness of what vulnerability was, when it was not even, that was a foreign language for me. So since 2011 to 2021, I have radically changed. And a big part of what allows me to release the vestiges of perfectionism that live within me and the stories of shame and unworthiness that perpetuated that in me is walking. And during that period of 2010, 2011, when I found Brené's work, I also was in deep awareness of Thich Nhat Hanh's work. And he has an incredible book that's called Peace is Every Step. And if you haven't read it, it's this very thin book. It's really incredible. But it was my first initiation into mindfully walking. And there are times in my life where I'm really taking Thich Nhat Hanh's approach of walking so mindfully and so ever-presently that each step feels like sometimes like an eternity when I'm going through a big change. And the old me might have really wanted to rush through the walk or not notice as much or not notice myself as much. But sometimes I call upon his technique to allow myself to really just honor who I was, that allowed me to come to this moment of present awareness, and really honoring the past perfectionist who still lives in me, who still is healing and integrating, and she's probably been asking for this for lifetimes from me. And another tool or technique that I use around mindfully walking comes from Tosha Silver, and I mentioned her early on in some of my lives. And the same week that I found Brené in 2011, the week, like right at the beginning of the week before, I had found Tosha Silver's work. And if you're not familiar with Tosha, her first book is called Outrageous Openness, Letting the Divine Take the Lead. And it is a non-religious book. She was raised in a very Jewish home with rabbis and many rabbinical students in her life. But this book crosses all paradigms. And it was the intersection of Tosha's work and Brené's work in my life at that time was truly a divine intervention. So Tosha's work talks about letting the divine taking the lead and allowing yourself to be led by whatever you call that. Your ancestors, nature, beloved pets, your highest self, your wise woman. And beginning to allow myself to know that I'm not the one who has to push, force, will or effort something. And that coupled with Brené's work of knowing that we're born worthy, those pieces really started to rapidly disintegrate a structure that no longer served me even back then, that 10 years later, I'm still humbly working to allow it to disintegrate one day at a time, one walk at a time. So with this woman who wrote to me in the messages after my live yesterday, she's going on a very divine walk, and she's integrating many thresholds she's crossing. And on that kind of walk, that's a deep, potent surrender. I really feel like Tosha's work is a beautiful complement to Thich Nhat Hanh's work. So in Tosha's work, you make yourself an offering. You are the offering. The walk is the offering. Each step is the offering. And if you're not a walker like me or this other woman who wrote to me, whatever it is your practice is, if it's swimming, if it's each stroke that you swim, if it's yoga, each asana that you offer, or if you're a writer, each word that you write, making it an offering from the deepest part of you that you know exists. Sometimes that part might not be taking the lead, but you can connect with her and contact her and really ask from the place of deep humility and deep reverence that you would like her and all of you to make whatever you're doing or being or allowing to be an offering. So you make it an offering for the highest good, to be of service. So it's not just for you or your writing or your walking or your creating or your swimming, that it's for you, for me, for us, for the greater world. And that type of practice allows us to walk with our divine imperfections and our humility into something so much bigger than anything that our ego could ever imagine. The stories that we tell ourselves around other people and what they're allowed to have or who they're allowed to be, and then the limitations of our ego or our intergenerational or ancestral trauma that limits what women can do, or what single women can do, or what single mothers can do, or what creatives can do, or what people who allow themselves to be happy can do. Allowing yourself to have a practice that you offer from the depths of your heart to allow yourself to be who you are called to be is one of the most sacred practices I know. And it is an incredible tool to integrate perfectionism into divine authenticity. The antidote to perfectionism and shame and unworthiness is authenticity, and that is oftentimes the most terrifying adventure of our lifetime. And when we're authentic, we can then begin to have different boundaries that say, this is my minimum standard, this is what's okay for me, and this is what's not okay for me. That's different than boundaries, and I've spoken about that in other lives. But when you're walking and you're in a meditative practice such as creating, or whatever your practice is, or many of us have many different practices, when you're in the mindful step by step of really allowing yourself to say, this is who I'm called to be, no matter what. Please help me. That's the next part. So you offer, and then you ask for help. Please help me to embody, to be, to allow this iteration of myself to come into this lifetime now, with this next step, with this next brushstroke, with this next word. Please allow me to step into the fullness of this life I came to live. And when we are in our authenticity, that is where the messy middle is. That's where imperfection is. That's where failure lives. And in this practice of allowing ourselves to walk out of perfectionism into our most wildly authentic, free, true self, there is never a wrong step. And you can ask yourself to be guided to the next right step, to the next right word, to the next right brushstroke, to the next right conversation. So all of these ways of being and living can be a practice that allow us to embody who we are called to be and who our ancestors have prayed for. And in Tosha's practices, you make yourself make the thing the offering. Then you ask for help, and then you surrender it. So yesterday I spoke about this a little bit, but when we surrender it, it goes from a mindset that asks for evidence to keep on moving forward to knowing that we are called to move forward no matter what. And that call, where there is no guarantee, there is no certainty, is a sacred divine call that I believe is deeply embedded in the divine feminine. The divine feminine is the essence, it's the flow, it's the energetic, where we keep on showing up with each step. We are guided by something deep within and deep beyond and much bigger than ourselves that allows us to keep showing up no matter what. When we are disconnected from that call, we oftentimes fall into the confusion around masculinity, that forcing, pushing, doing, willing. I only show up if I get this outcome, or I'm only good enough if I get this outcome, or if I get this thing that I really want. That confusion is the disconnection from the divine, from our own personal call in this lifetime. So if you're wanting to get back in alignment with the walk of walks for this lifetime for yourself, where you're truly releasing perfectionism and integrating with each moment, with each breath, with each step, who you're called to be, I invite you to look at your beliefs around perfectionism. Where do you still get hooked? Where do you still feel that that's where you give your power away? If I was this person, if I had this thing, if I looked a certain way, if I was a certain weight, if I was validated or acknowledged in a certain way, then I would be worthy to keep on going forward on this path. Those are some journal prompts to look at where you might get hooked, where perfectionism is still leading the walk versus the most divine, sacred feminine that lives within you, that is asking and inviting you into this deeper call, this deeper walk that is the soul's walk, oftentimes for lifetimes and for generations. So I invite you, wherever you are today, or whenever you find this video, that you open up to the call that has lived within you and your intergenerational transmissions and your ancestors for lifetimes. And we just go to the door and we knock every day. We take the walk, we take the steps every day. We write every day. We create every day. Not because of should with the confused masculine, but because this is our devotion. The devotion to our ancestors. The devotion to creating a legacy where things can change. Sending you blessings from Washington, D.C. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. And if this video spoke to you, if it deeply resonated with you, I invite you to share it. We're on a path of evolving together, one walk at a time, one written expression at a time, one creation at a time, one asana at a time, one brave conversation at a time, out of perfectionism into the divine feminine that is truly authentic. Blessings. Thank you.